view when it comes to my view when it comes to burnout is that we as individuals have a big responsibility when it comes to how we choose to live our lives. But as employers, we also have responsibilities to make sure that people feel the best that they can. And so to give them the best conditions to perform and show up as themselves. So yeah, should I perhaps dive into the presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Share here, right?
Yes. And then
and then go up here.
present.
Right, this one?
There. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Then present again.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
I can move a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll do this. So like Kata said, today we're going to talk about a balanced life, building a balanced life, because to me, that's all what it's about. It's not either or, but it's having balance. So last time we talked, and we have talked in the previous sessions about symptoms and causes of burnout. And like Kata said, today's a bit more positive and a bit more fun. Everything's positive, but it can feel heavy sometimes. But the whole point is that we have a huge ability to heal, and we have a huge ability to build health. And that's the whole point of today, to talk about that. I thought that I would start with a moment to yourself, just a short guided meditation where we can wind down, de-stress a little bit, and also leave whatever we have brought into this space outside for a little minute. So I invite you to close your eyes. I'll be closing mine because I found that it's easier to connect that way. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. So what we'll be doing now for the next couple of minutes is something called body awareness. And basically what this is about is to just let go of other thoughts and just focus on what's going on in your body. Starting with your toes, can just notice if there's any kind of sensation in your toes. Perhaps they're cold, warm, anything like that. And you can use your focus as like a magnifying glass. So you can think of it as magnifying the spot of your body that you're zoning in on. So you can move that magnifying glass to the top of your feet, and then on the soles of your feet as well, moving up on your shins and your calves. So if there's anything, maybe there's a pulsating feeling, maybe there's some tension that you can let go of. And you can move up to your knees, to the front of your thighs, and the back of your thighs as well, on your seating area and your lower back. Perhaps you feel that you have some pains anywhere. That's okay. The whole point is just to notice, not to make any judgments, but just to notice that whatever you're feeling is just what you're feeling. You can zone in on your stomach and see what's happening there, and move up towards your chest. Perhaps you can feel your heart beating. Perhaps you can feel it in your throat as well. And you come back to the back side of your body and move up your back towards your shoulders. If you have any tension there, you can just try and relax a little bit. And then you move up your chin and your cheeks, your nose. If anything is scratching, you can try to let it be like that, or scratch if you want to. The point is just to notice how it feels. Your eyes, your forehead, the back of your head, all the way to the top of your head. And you can also feel how your arms are feeling at this moment. Any kind of aches, pains, any tingling and sensations, anything like that, you just notice it. And come out through your hands and through the tips of your fingers. And you can continue to keep your eyes closed and take 3 deep breaths. You can breathe in through your nose and out through your nose as well. Another breath in and out. And last one, in and out. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes slowly and come back to the room and to this moment together. Okay. This exercise is part of what I'll be talking about today, which is one example of how to practice mindfulness, and we'll get into more of it in just a moment. For those of you who weren't here last time, I wanted to recap on two different concepts, because I think that it's important when we talk about the healing. And by the way, if anyone has any questions or any reflections during the presentation, just let me know. I will be asking a question or two here and there as well, just to get your input. But the first concept that I wanted to talk about is this fact that we can't get rid of all the stressors in our lives, but we can choose how we respond to them. The point is not to live a life without stress, because that's simply not possible. We do get stressed because of deadlines and because of a lack of clarity, an uncertain future, conflicts, sick relatives, or whatever it may be. Stress is always going to be present, but we can kind of guide ourselves in how we deal with the stressors in our lives. And we can also create habits that makes it easier for us to be resilient. So this image of the grass on the beach is sort of an image to help you keep in mind that we're not supposed to break from stress, but we're supposed to be resilient enough, thanks to constructive habits, to be able to just bend a little bit with the wind and then come back and stand tall again. Another concept that I wanted to come back to is this idea that burnout, it's not an idea, this truth that burnout happens over time, and that recovery also happens over time, right? So during the recovery of somebody who is in burnout, there will be progress for sure. As you can see underneath the recovery, it's like moving like this, right? And there will also be setbacks. And the setbacks are totally okay. It's totally normal. You will never have a recovery like this. In any kind of illness, there's usually back and forth. And when it comes to burnout, what it is all about is learning to notice what happens within you and take that as guidance going forward. So I like to say to the people that I work with to try to be explorers in their own lives. And what that means is, of course, to keep an eye on your development, right? The tendency needs to be in the positive direction. Then if there's a few setbacks on the road, that's fine and that's normal. And actually, the setbacks can be quite helpful because there's information in there. So let's say that somebody is burnt out and they desperately want to hang out with a friend, which is great, of course. The social aspect is really important of healing. But perhaps they hang out for 2 hours, for 3 hours, and then they're exhausted for a whole week after. So there's information in there. And the information is not stay away from your friends. The information is rather decrease the amount of time that you do something on a one-on-one basis. Perhaps half an hour is enough. When I was in burnout and when I started to come back, I could only hang out with my friends for half an hour at a time because more than that was too much. And I realized it and I started to panic a little bit because I felt, no, I'm back to square one again. But you're not back to square one. It's just a setback. And the important thing is to keep on building with the positive habits going forward. If anyone, do you have any reflections at this point? Something, anyone in this room or anyone online? Will I see questions, by the way? Or will...
You will see hands up.
I will see hands. Okay. What happens if I press here? I don't know.
You
I'm
will
not
see
sure.
more people.
More people. Okay. So perhaps there are no questions at this point. I don't think so. Let's move forward. So something I want to talk about as well is the idea that everything is connected, right? Our emotions affects our thoughts, that affects our actions, that affects our emotions. And what's really important when it comes to healing from burnout is to kind of cut this spiral. Because if somebody in burnout is feeling low, for example, maybe thinking about how depressing it is and worrying it is to be so much weaker than that person would normally be, then it's very easy that those emotions will trigger thoughts like, how could I be so stupid not to realize that I was about to become burnout? Why didn't I, live in a more sustainable way? Why didn't I ask for help earlier? What's going to happen in the future? And then, of course, those thoughts create more negative emotions that create more negative thoughts. It can also be the fact that, if you're in a very high stress level, you're doing things very fast all the time. I used to do that all the time. I used to do everything really, really quickly, from like work to communicate to walk and work out to doing the stuff at home, like emptying the dishwasher, whatever. I was always like super, super, super effective, or efficient, I should say, doing as much as possible in as short a time as possible. And when you're in that kind of state, you're actually telling your body, this is, a high stress situation. So you affect your thoughts thinking, let's do this, let's be even faster. And you're affecting your emotions as well, right? So what's really important to keep in mind is that there is this cycle, and that what's important is to try and break that cycle. So when you are feeling low, for example, that you are in burnout, you can just notice that. This is, a part of mindfulness, right? You just notice. It's a technique called diffusion, which I'll get more into. I'll mention it a little bit more in a while. But instead of going into your emotions and becoming one and ending up in this extremely stressful spiral that will cause even more symptoms and that will cause even more negative thoughts and worry, you just end things there and say, yeah, I'm feeling really low. And right now I have this emotion that, I probably should have asked for help earlier. Yeah. Right now, I'm having a thought that I've been really unwise in my life. Right now, I have a thought that tells me that maybe I'll never get well. And by telling yourself that, and by creating a little distance between emotions and thoughts and yourself, you are helping to break that cycle. And it is easier to lower the stress level in the moment and for the body to start healing. When we talk about healing, something that is really important to keep in mind is that it's about making deliberate choices to build a life in balance. Now, again, we can't control what happens to us or around us all the time, but we can start to live our lives in a more conscious way, right? So what I like to talk about is something called a life compass, which essentially is the reason why you are here, the kind of change that you want to make in your life, how you want to live your life, how you want to feel. And when you have that kind of clarity, it becomes much easier to see whenever there's a mismatch in your current life. Okay, so I'm very clear that I want to live a life that is full and that is not only about work. Yet when I look at my calendar, the only thing I see is schedule, meetings, tasks, and driving my son to soccer practice, and zero time for myself. So there's a mismatch there. So once we become aware of what our life would like to look like, and this is a really fun exercise to make with really deep questions on, what is that vision for your life? We can start to see, where can I make any changes in my current life? Now, two things here I want to mention is that this is a really great thing for becoming aware, not just aware of how you live your life today and how you want to live it in the future, but also how you feel, right? Because as I mentioned in last week's presentation. I think that we are kind of caught up in a very production and performance focused culture. Many of us, we have been brought up with, following the good grades and doing the homeworks and standing in line and getting ahead. And that kind of performance focus sometimes causes us to override how we are actually feeling. And when we start to become aware of our own life compass, if we want to call it that, it can become very evident that, wow, I'm actually having a lot of stress right now. My body is feeling really tense right now. I have sore shoulders, or I have different aches in the body. I talked to a client last week and she said, when I get a lot of stress, my whole body ends up aching. There are all these different kinds of symptoms. So having a clear life compass means also that you're going to become more aware, which is great because we have to relearn how to listen to our body, right? Our bodies. The second thing that might happen is discomfort, because when we are used to going for the instant gratification of delivering, performing, getting praise, feeling like we are great, like we belong, we're the star of the team, or whatever it may be, that's instant gratification, right? It's something that gives us a kick in the moment. And that is how many of us have lived our lives up until now. And so choosing something differently in the moment can feel really uncomfortable. For example, instead of sitting and pulling an all-nighter and, being there for the team and performing and getting the tap on the shoulder from the boss the day after, instead of doing that, saying, hold on, it's actually 6 o'clock. I want to have a life that is in balance, and I want to have, a moment to myself this evening, either going for a walk or going to the gym, hanging out with a friend, or just doing nothing, whatever it may be. I'm going to close the laptop and go home. That can feel insanely uncomfortable. So to be aware that choosing in a different way, in a healthy way, is not just fun and happy. It can actually be really scary and really difficult and quite challenging. And it's just good to be aware of that. And again, if those kinds of emotions show up, all you do is you notice them and you create that diffusion, that distance, and say, wow, right now I'm feeling really uncomfortable because I'm leaving work too early, or I'm leaving my team, or I'm not responding to an email right away, whatever it may be. I'm not there for my friends, or however it is in your life. So just be aware that there can be discomfort that shows up. It's not just fun, but it will become fun as we learn how to, overcome and just accept the discomfort and move past it. So I would like to throw out a question to you here in this room and everyone online, and that is how you take care of yourselves to foster a life that is in balance. Do you have any kind of tips or tricks or habits or things that you would like to do that you haven't started to do yet? Is there anything that you would like to share? And we would be happy to take part of it, I'm sure.
I can say what works for me for
Yeah.
like balance is that I have to force myself when I finish to work to really switch off my work phone and really force myself to put this limit and say, okay, this is time for me to go home. And at the beginning, it was harder to stop thinking about work, also because I also work with people in contact and I care a lot about people, so I'm always in this kind of mood, but that works for me. And with the time, it's getting better, like it's easier.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I'm curious to know, how was it when you started that habit? Like, what was it when it was difficult? Did you have something that helped you stay on track with that and not fall back into old habits?
I remember the first time that I was dealing with a student about finding for him an internship, and then time was done, so I had to go home, and I was curious about an answer, so I checked my phone, and it was a negative answer. And then for the next like few hours, I couldn't think about anything else, and I was so mad at myself because it was my free time. And then after that, I told myself, okay, when you finish, it's finished. And for me, it's like, okay, I switch off my phone, and that's it. To stick with that, I would say I always remember to myself how valued is my free time as is my working times. Like I'm a person, I have to a different part of myself, but I have to respect each part.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that you're so wise to do that because, you know, this idea that we're there for everyone and we take care of everyone, we can't do that unless we take care of ourselves first. And I have been there myself, checking the email and then getting something really stressful in the evening and then having trouble sleeping and, you know, kicking myself to be like, why? But like you say,
Exactly.
it's just a good reminder. Okay, don't do that. You can take that email in the morning and then have a good night's rest so that it's possible to solve any kind of problems the day after if needed.
It can wait. It can
It
wait.
can wait.
We always have this feeling that it's so urgent, but
Yeah.
it's an illusion. It's not like that.
Exactly, exactly. I totally agree. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it. Does anyone else want to share something from their own lives?
One person in the
I
chat.
would
Oh,
like can you see me?
yes, yes, yes. I can see you.
Alright. So I've realized wellness for me is proper sleep. And it's not just sleep. Sleep is related to how can I say? So when I lay down, it's important to me to first let all my thoughts just drift and turn, and I try to remove them before I go to sleep. So even though it's early or something, I know my body is telling me I'm tired and I didn't work out or anything, so I knew something is off. So I just lay in bed and just let all my thoughts go, and then I fall asleep and I turn off everything, so I have my 8 hours. And yeah, I've realized that this helped me to recharge my energy as well.
Yeah, sleep. I mean, we all know it's some of the things we know it, and still things come in between. And having a routine like that for actually getting sleep is really, really, really helpful. So whatever it may be, like you're doing, you're letting your thoughts ruminate and then things calm down. For me, if I wake up in the middle of the night, it's deep breathing and I follow my breaths. I don't count, I don't do any kind of intellectual exercise at all. I just follow the breath and not always, but most of the time it actually works phenomenally. So that's really great. Thank you so much for sharing. Laura is saying camping, singing, and listening to reggae. I love that. Yeah. Listening to music, a mood shift. That's an instant mood shift. That's awesome. Did anyone else want to share anything? Please feel free. If not, I can continue with the presentation and we can come back to these things as well. So one of the techniques that I wanted to share today is mindfulness, and I'm sure that most of you already know about it, but I thought that I would talk a little bit about why it's so important, what you can do to make it happen, and some of the examples that I have found to be really effective, not just for myself, but for my clients as well. So mindfulness, the way that I see it, it's a really effective technique for anxiety and stress reduction. And why I like it so much is that it's easy to do. You can do it in an instant. You can practice it anywhere. And it's not about perfection. It's about being in the present moment and practicing it without judgment. So it's not about for beliefs, like I said, following along and noticing what happens in your body. It's not about being present throughout the whole thing. Every time you lose focus, mindfulness is about practicing coming back to that focus, whether it be deep breathing, walking, or anything else. It's not about being perfect. And that's really important to remember, because a lot of people in burnout are perfectionists. I always say these days I say I'm a recovering perfectionist. And it's good to have a practice that doesn't require you to be great at it. You can just practice it, and with time you'll get better. Something that happens a lot for someone in burnout is that they will have the time window open to the future or to the past. And what I mean by that is that there will be a lot of thinking about the past, like remembering how strong you were when you were healthy before burnout, a lot of regret that you didn't pull the brakes before you ended up in your crash, a lot of blame, self-blame. Why didn't I ask for help? Why didn't I slow down? And a lot of guilt and shame as well. Like, I thought I was so strong. I thought I was Wonder Woman, and now I'm this weakened version of myself, and I feel horrible. So having the time window open to the past often brings with it feelings that are incredibly negative and very tough to think about, right? To have in the body, thoughts that are negative, that trigger a lot of emotions that are negative as well. Something that also might happen is that the time window is open towards the future. And for someone in burnout, the future is often very uncertain. It feels very uncertain. The major question that often circles around in their heads will be, when will I get well? Or even, will I ever get well? What if this is the new me? When I was in burnout, there were many, many, many times where I thought, this is my new life. I'm just going to be sitting here, not being able to work out, not being able to work, to contribute, to be fun, to be a good friend, partner, mom, anything. And it's devastating. It's very difficult to be in that space. So this is why mindfulness is so important when somebody is in burnout, because it's really about closing that window to the future, closing the window to the past, and instead being in the present, in the here and now, just noticing what's going on without judgment, without trying to be perfect. And there are different mindfulness techniques. These are just a few. There are so many, and you can probably come up with some for yourselves as well. The body scanning that we did in the beginning of the session is one example. You can also go for mindful walk when you focus on the beautiful things during your walk that you see that you are so grateful for. You can also call it like a gratitude walk. Just focus on the tiny leaves that are finally showing up here in Stockholm, where it's still kind of winter vibe. You can focus on a blue sky. You can focus on a cute dog that you just passed by, or a couple that looked really happy, or whatever it is. Just notice what's going on around you. I talked about diffusion before, which is creating that space between yourself and your thoughts and or emotions. That's also a way to be mindful. If you notice that your heart is racing, which can be the case if you are in a high stress level and with lots of anxiety, I always used to slow down the rate that my heart was beating, like, slow down. Why am I so stressed? Come on, slow down, slow down. But of course, that only made it worse because I couldn't slow down. And my kind of mean words to myself just made it even harder to slow down. So it was one of those spirals again. So diffusion, just being like, wow, I have a racing heart at this moment. Wow, it's really racing fast. And I feel a little bit stressed by that. That's okay. Diffusion is okay. Another technique is progressive relaxation, where you tense up and then relax each part of your body. So again, you can begin with your toes, like tensing up your toes and then relaxing, and then tensing up even harder, like really, really tense, and then relaxing. And you can see how it feels differently from a small tense to a high tense, the relaxation that happens after. One thing that I really like that has helped me immensely is something called 333. And it is observing 3 things that you can see, 3 things that you can hear, and 3 things that you can feel. So you can combine a mindful walk with that technique, for example, or you can sit in a room if you're alone, or even in a meeting, something happens that triggers a stress reaction within you. You can just go ahead and start to notice, oh, the curtains are kind of cream colored in this room and they're transparent, and I can see the darker curtains from the other room in this curtain. Oh, okay, the door has a silver handle and a silver lock that I can only see the backside of in this room. Oh, the TV screen is on and it's, so you just notice 3 things, and really you can in your mind just tell yourself or just notice what you see. And then if you talk about the next 3, the hearing, okay, you can hear somebody, taking notes with their pencil, or you can hear the noise from the cars outside, and so on and so forth. So this is a way to not ignore the fact that you are feeling anxiety, but it's a way to calm your body by kind of breaking the spiral of thoughts, emotions, actions, thoughts, emotions, actions. We've talked about breathing, and there are tons of different breathing exercises. You can just take 10 deep breaths. You can breathe in a square, which means you can imagine that you breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause, breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause. And every time you count to 4, for example. So 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. 1, 2, and you slow that down so that the breathing isn't stressful, but actually relaxing. You can breathe by noticing how your breaths feel when you breathe in through your nose and out through your nose, how the breath passes through your entire body or through different areas in your body. And another great way to practice and integrate mindfulness in your everyday life is to do it whilst you are doing your everyday chores, like filling up the laundry machine. Instead of being like, yes, fill it, fill it, fill it, and I'm so efficient, you can be like, this is a sweater, and I'm now putting the sweater into the washing and into the laundry machine. This is something else. And you do it slower, consciously lowering the pace that you're doing it in, and being present, not just throwing things in as you're thinking about that annoying email, but actually noticing what you're doing. When you're folding laundry, talking a lot about laundry today, but when you're folding laundry, you can feel the fabric, you can even smell the clothes and be like, this smells really great. If you are preparing dinner, you can be like, yes, I'm chopping the carrots, and try to slow down and just think about what you're doing and bring yourself to the here and now. So mindfulness, super effective. It's not about being, perfect, but it's about learning to come back to the here and now. And again, every time you lose focus, instead of being like, oh, darn it, I lost focus, I should be better at this. No, you shouldn't. You should just come back and try it again until next time you lose focus, and then you come back and try it again. That's all what it's about. I thought that I would talk a little bit about time management as well, because time is a scarce resource for many of us, and we often have this pressure that we have too little of it. We need to do as much as possible with it, and that's why we don't take breaks. That's why we don't say hi to people who come by, because we can't, afford to lose that 10 seconds. We are just so involved in our work at this moment. So something I like to talk about is trying to think about whether or not whether we are doing the right things, or if we are perhaps trying to do the things in the right way. When we talk about burnout, perfectionism is a huge part of it. So I always like to help people focus on their goals, whether they be private, personal goals or professional goals, and see what they need to do to reach those goals. Because what often happens is that we do a lot of other things that perhaps aren't that important for our goals, and we can press pause, or we can delegate, or we can leave them all together. So are you doing the things that you need to be doing to reach your goals? Sometimes it's also about changing your schedule up totally, right? To actually go for a lunch break, to actually take regular breaks, to actually build in time just with yourself. So how you build your days is really important. And of course, this notion of never being done. I often say, like, I run my own business since 2006, and it's like being at university. You could always study a little bit more. There's always more things to do, right? And I think that goes for most jobs. There's always things that we could do to perfect, to make a little bit of a bigger contribution. And the problem with never being done is that we can never give ourselves a break. I'll only do this and then I'll go for lunch. I'll only finish off this report and then I'll go home. Instead of saying, I'm going home at 6 o'clock today, or even at 5, no matter how far I've come. So to have things like to-do lists, or to block out time for a specific task or for yourself, is something that I think is really valuable. To have, an hour during the day when you go to eat and you go for a walk, or, hang out with your colleagues, whatever you do, but to become a little bit more structured when it comes to managing your time. And to set the alarm. I don't trust myself to remember when I need to take a break. I often set the alarm because I know that I will forget otherwise. And of course, this thing about being in burnout often has a lot to do with control. Perfectionism and control, those are two of the different sides of the same coin. And to try and say, is there something you can delegate? Is there someone you can ask for help? Is there something that you can do together with someone? The third thing I wanted to talk about is rest and recovery. And I wanted to start by asking you guys what comes to mind when I say rest and recovery. Like, what kind of activities do you think of? Is there anyone who wants to share what comes to mind? Perhaps sleep
for 8 hours and then
sleep for 8 hours. Yeah. Something else?
I'm trying to think.
Trying to think. Yeah. Someone online.
For me, it's that I need to rest my mind thinking about work, because I come home and I'm so passionate about my work that I can't want to tell my boyfriend, okay, today this happened and this and this and this, and then it's like an hour talking about what happened at work. So I'm like more aware that I should. I sometimes I can tell something if it's important to my the people around, but I was noticing that my mind was so tired to repeat some things from work or to keep talking about work. So now I'm like, I don't want to talk about work. I want my mind to be relaxed and peaceful and thinking in other things in life, having other topics to talk about. And we now have that kind of rule that none of us is really talking a lot about work. Because it becomes the only thing you talk about at the end, because it's when you spend the most of your day and then you come home, is the thing that you have to talk about. But it's like, no, we need to talk, we need to do other things, find other hobbies, find other interesting things to learn, to discuss, to think about. That is not only work. And it had been very peaceful, like my mind is more relaxed when we talk about something else, and
That's great.
and learn about something else, or hear, listen music.
Yeah. I like that so much. I think that is, those are two great examples. Of course, sleep, and also letting our mind rest. I'm sorry, perhaps someone else had something that they wanted to share as well.
I wanted just to add that for me it's the same. I have this small rule. I mean, that was my rule, like my something that for me was important, to not speak about work after work. And even if I meet my friends and they're asking me, how was your day? I'm just like trying really to not to avoid, but really to say, all okay, and I'm really trying to not to speak about it, because for me, like Saturday evening, eating pizza and speaking about work, I really don't like it, and that is something that I decide for myself. And for recovering, for me, the best is traveling. I mean, reset. That is something, I mean, of course, not always is possible, but even, you know, just to go for one day somewhere far away from there. Of course, your mind and your thoughts are with you, but another input, another colors, another, I don't know, experience. That is something that's always helping me with this kind of situations.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And what comes to mind with both you and Kata is the change, right? And that's something I want to talk about, because rest and recovery is not only about sleep and lying on the sofa, even though that's one part of it. But recovery and rest can actually look very different. It's very common that we think that, you know, this sitting in front of our cell phone, yeah, I'm just relaxing, I'm watching YouTube clips or TikTok or whatever people like to watch. But for someone who works a lot on their computer, for example, taking a break and looking into your phone, that's not a break. That's not resting. So what we need to think about when we think about rest and recovery is that we need to rest the part of you that needs it the most. So what both you and Kata have talked about, that you have been involved in work the whole day, and just, you know, being at home with friends or family, still being at work because you're talking about it, that isn't rest. I mean, of course, sometimes we want to share and we want to celebrate, and that's perfect. But, you know, sometimes we need to do something different. So when I talk about rest, I always like to teach this concept that if we have been cognitively engaged for a long time, we have to engage physically. So, for example, if I take a break, if I do a lot of things on my laptop, for example, one day, I need to go out for a walk, or I need to do some meditation, or I need to, I mean, I have so many of these different things. Sometimes I stand on one leg and I close my eye and try to stand on one leg and balance for 1 minute per leg. That can be a break from having been involved in the laptop for a long time. And same if somebody has been really using, you know, been involved in physical labor for a long time. Of course, going for a jog is probably not the best way to rest. That's when you need to lie down and scroll on your phone, or you need to phone a friend and talk to them. So recovering from burnout is not just about resting, it's about resting the part of you that needs it the most. At times, things like hanging out with friends, watching TV, watching the phone can be too stressful. Things that we normally associate with recovery can be too much for someone in burnout. So it's really about being mindful again and being aware of how do I feel right now? What do I need at this moment? I'm going to see if I can see the name of that person. Yes, Denitsa, good food and gym. Yes, I hear you. Yes, here's to that. Even cooking can be a nice break. I was in an office of a client a few months ago, and they have a kitchen there, and one of the team members likes to bake during the day. So she takes half an hour to make some muffins or something. That's an excellent way to rest and recover. The important thing when we talk about rest is to really not leave it for until, you know, when I'm done with work, but to really build rest into your day. So I talk about stripey days. I'm wondering if you guys have heard about stripey days. It's the concept when you have work break, work break, work break, hence the word stripey days. And what you do to achieve stripey days is you plan in your breaks first, and you plan what you're going to be doing during those breaks as well. So whether it's standing on one leg or going for a walk, doing some stretching or some yoga, or listening to a song or baking or whatever it is, you plan those things throughout the day. And then you plan in what you're going to be working on in between those breaks. Then you set the timer, and you can use the Pomodoro method for like 20 or 25 minutes. It really depends on the state that somebody is in. There were times when I couldn't work at my laptop for more than 10 minutes, and after that, my brain was fried. And the trick when it comes to recovering from burnout is not to end up in that fried or exhausted state. You want to end before you're exhausted. So you have to be that explorer in your own adventure, in your own healing journey, to know what is too much, what is just the right amount before I become too tired. So planning in those times, setting the timer, and you can think of this as, charging your cell phone or filling up your car with gas. We would probably not go on a road trip without having some idea of when we could fill up with gas. Or, very rarely would we leave our home without any ability to charge our phone, because we don't want to end up with a phone that's not working. So Stripey Days is that same concept of making sure that we have these stations, these charging stations, where we replenish with energy so that we can function for the rest of the day. Also want to mention boundaries. Of course, setting boundaries is super important. And again, like on the plane, to have the oxygen mask on you first. We are all happy helpers. We all like to be there for our colleagues, our friends and family. But I encourage you to start asking yourself the question, what is best for me right now? When we talk about creating a space, there's also an importance in having a space between a question that is asked of you and an answer that comes from you. So when somebody says, hey, Kata, I have this party on Saturday, do you want to come? And perhaps Kata is super rested and in shape, but perhaps if somebody is really not up for it and really too tired, it's okay to say no. It's okay to feel a bit guilty. And you can even tell your friend, I'm sorry, I would love to be there, but I just can't do it right now. So boundaries have to do with work, agreeing with your coworkers and perhaps a manager or yourself if you're an entrepreneur. What are the kind of rules that we have in this workplace when it comes to off-hours communication? Should we even reply to emails after 6 o'clock or after 5 o'clock, or should we not? How do we talk to each other? Am I still okay with being in a context where I don't have any feedback loops whatsoever, for example? Because that's one driver behind burnout, to be in a context without clarity. So to talk about boundaries at work, but also with family and friends. We want to be there for our parents, for our siblings, for everyone, but we can also say, hey, I can help you with this and I will do it wholeheartedly, but then I need to go home and rest and recharge and fill up my own batteries. And the important thing is it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can go to a party and you can stay an hour. You can go to a potluck dinner, but perhaps just bring drink. You don't have to cook. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And this is really about experimenting and seeing what works for you, but always having the perspective of what is best for you, because for you to recover and to last, that's where the focus needs to be right now. Using empathy and clarity in your communication, always using nonviolent communication, not blaming anyone else, taking responsibility for you, but being very clear and daring to set boundaries. I also quickly want to mention the role of the employer, because I do believe, like I said in the beginning, that the employer has a huge responsibility when it comes to coming back from burnout. This is a topic all in and of itself, so I'll just go through these very quickly. I would love to talk more about it with those who are interested. You can always reach out to me. But one of the things that I'm really adamant about is to make well-being a strategic part of work. It's as important as revenue and bottom line. That's just fact. And that's what every research points to, that, when people feel good, they do well. And that's how they also make money for the company. I talk a lot about leadership and about leading with authenticity, daring to show up as your entire self, daring to be vulnerable, daring to ask for questions or apologize if you've made a mistake. That's fine. That's even great, because it tells your coworkers that they're allowed to show up as themselves too, and that they don't need to be perfect either. Transparency, super important. Not assume that people are on board, but actually talk about things and create structures and processes for talking about things on a regular basis. And like I was mentioning in one of the previous slides, to have kind of rules, I don't like that word, but you know probably what I mean, to have some kind of it's like a social contract. In this workplace, we are genuinely interested in having people show up, rested, happy, and live a well-rounded life, because that's humanity, that at its best, and that's also a way for them to do their best for this organization, right? And we can also talk about policies and norms. I was in a workplace a bunch of years ago where we had a resting room, but it was highly frowned upon. If somebody would have gone in there and taken a nap or a rest, people would have, you know, really, that would have been frowned upon. So what are the norms in the workplace? That's something that leaders and coworkers can work together with to really make the values that they say that they're about come to life. Working really hard on the social climate, because many people are lonely in the workplace these days, and loneliness is a very big reason why people decide to leave a workplace. And that's kind of a silent problem, right? You probably wouldn't say that to anyone. So managers need to be, and leaders need to be aware that that's something that they need to bring up as well, and dare to ask people, dare to talk about that, and see, you know, invite them to a dialogue to see how people actually feel. All of these things have to do with creating a culture intentionally, not just saying that we're about one thing and then showing up as something else, but being really mindful of what we're about and then strategically working to create that culture with intention and depth. So just to summarize, healing from burnout is a journey of discovery, and it's supposed to be non-judgmental. You learn, we all live and we learn, right? And that's what recovering from burnout is all about. And to be kind to yourself. So mindfulness is a tool that reduces level of anxiety and stress, and it's easy to do and it's easy to practice, and it's not about being perfect, but it's about coming back to the here and now. Time management can be a really effective tool that helps to build sustainable patterns. And recovery is about resting the part of you that needs it the most. And we all need to become more in touch with our body to see and understand what we actually need. And then this whole idea of setting boundaries, it can be connected to guilt, because why am I thinking about myself and not about other people? But it is the most important step that we can take. Take care of yourself first so that you can continue to take care of others. So I would like to invite you to share, if you want to, you don't have to, if there's one practice that you would like to try out during the next 10 days to begin with. And if there's something that you think that you need to make that happen, you can also think about it for yourselves without sharing. If it's too personal, that's absolutely fine. And it doesn't have to be something that I've talked about. Perhaps it's something you've heard about before. Something that Priscilla talked about, for example, forest bathing or something else. But if you want to share, feel free to do so now. Oh, glasses on. Saying no at work a bit more often, says Laura. Yes. I hear that. Bravo. Yeah. Is there something you think that you need to make that happen? Perhaps have an accountability partner. That could be something. You can tell a colleague or a friend that I have this goal and I really want to start saying no. And you can have someone that you talk to, you know, once a month or once every second week or every week, how often you want to do it. I love accountability partners, so that could be something that could help you with that, Laura. Is there someone else who wants to share? Anyone here, perhaps?
I think I'm gonna set the timer. I hear that tip before, but I never get it like very like an explanation of how it works or why. So I have never tried it, but I think I will definitely try to put the 25 minutes, because for me it's like I get a little bit time. I need some time to focus on something, so that's why I don't rest, because once I'm focusing, I don't want to lose the focus.
Yeah.
But then thinking about that, there is a need to actually have these breaks and plan for the breaks will make me adjust and on my mind to, okay, now I'm focused again. So I think I'm gonna try it and see how it goes.
That's awesome. And I think a good tip there when it comes to setting the timer is that's my top tip. First, you can have a reminder, like you can put a post-it note here on your laptop. Take a break now, take a break after 25 minutes. You can remind yourself with visual notes. And also the rule is to whatever you're doing in that moment, even though you're in the middle of an email, take the break, because otherwise you'll be like, oh, and then another email popped up, and then you're again in the middle of everything. So try and really, set the timer, and when the timer goes off, drop whatever you're doing, unless of course it's something that is. Vivian is writing good vibes, more of good vibes. I like it. I'm not sure how, but there are of course a million ways to get good vibes. You can talk to your friend, you can put on your favorite song and dance around. If someone's watching, that might be okay. If you feel like you don't want to do that, take a meeting room or do it when you're working from home. Yeah, it's all about creating a positive vibe going forward. Absolutely. Is there someone else who wants to share something? Yeah.
I'm going to
Sorry.
like the 3-3-3.
Yeah.
Because I think like it really can help me in the future. Like for example, I'm gonna talk in a class, for example. Before that, I can calm myself down with 3-3-3. I can imagine it really works. It can work, I believe.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much. I'm happy. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. We all have to find what works for us. And this is fun because there are a million tools out there and a million ways of doing things, and we have to find what works for us. Is there anyone else who wants to share anything? Right. So I just want to remind everyone, I have a special offer for the people who are in this group, a 20% discount on my one-on-one coaching program that is called Business Without Burnout. So you can go to yourthrivingbusiness.com and use the code Wellbeing, and it's valid through Sunday, April 28th. This is a 6-month program where we meet up regularly to talk about how you can work and create a life that is truly in balance, and we go deep and we go practical as well. So feel free to check that out. So I want to thank everyone for listening today. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn and haven't done so already, you can use this QR code. You can also check out my other website, sanacords.com, which is where I talk about how I help organizations build sustainable success, both with results and people in mind. Thank you, Julia, for your kind words. I'm happy you found it useful. If anyone else wants to say something or share something at this point, you are so welcome to do so. I'm very grateful to have had this opportunity. I'm really happy that everyone checked in today to share this moment together.
Thank you, Sana. It was really, really nice session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sana. It was very nice.
Thank you.
Super, super amazing session today as well. I want to tell everyone online, maybe I would like to see you for a minute before we end. Just to say thank you for everyone who comes here in person and for all of you that are connected online. Just to remind that you all have my email. If there is any questions, any additional explanations, we have a group of mentors that can support during the program. So don't hesitate to reach out to my email, and see you on the next session. It's going to be next Thursday and the same link. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.